Mr. Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Donald, and good evening, everybody. Well, Amber Rudd has gone. We rather predicted that on this show over the course of the last few days. She was appearing a bit friendless by yesterday morning. Funny, isn't it, really? An administrative mess-up over legal immigrants, people who had been here for 50 or 60 years but didn't in the end have the right documentation, led into an argument, a witch hunt some may say, over what the government's tactics were on dealing with illegal immigrants. And let's be clear, illegal immigrants are people who should simply not be here. They've either come into the country on the back of a lorry or they've come in on a visa and simply overstayed their time. And yet Amber Rudd, I think firstly because of her political correctness and secondly because she didn't want to appear to be too tough on immigration, otherwise they'd say, that's the mentality that's led to the difficulty with the Windrush folk. When she's asked, did your department have targets for dealing with illegal immigration, shied away from it. So, of course, she has misled Parliament, and that's why she's had to go. I mean, the whole thing's ludicrous. Every department in Whitehall has targets. That is the culture. It's a culture that Tony Blair very much brought in, and sometimes we could argue, well, some of these targets are pretty hopeless and never ever get met, but that's not the point. The whole place operates on targets, so of course they had targets. But if she said, yes, absolutely, and we're doing our best to fulfil those targets, well, she'd have looked tough on immigration, even though they were illegal immigrants at a time they were trying to look compassionate towards bad things that had been done to legal migrants. And now, because of all of this, it's becoming very difficult to criticise government immigration policy at all. Indeed, Boris, in the middle of all this, threw in his own bombshell by suggesting that up to 700,000 illegal immigrants should simply get an amnesty. So, an atmosphere of fear amongst the political and media classes over the immigration issue, not for the first time. And my guess is much of the rest of the country looking on, shaking their head in total and utter bewilderment. But the charge for all of this was led by backbench Labour MP David Lammy and, of course, Shadow Home Secretary Diane Abbott. Strong speeches in the House of Commons last week saying that Lord Carrington had the honour to resign as Foreign Secretary over the Falklands and that Amber Rudd should do the same as Home Secretary. Well, this morning she was out and about, and I guess really very much with Amber Rudd's scalp, pleased with what she'd done, and she appeared on Good Morning Britain to be interviewed by Piers Morgan. And Piers decided the time was right to ask her some questions about her policy towards illegal immigrants. Get yourselves ready. This is a real treat.
All I can say to you, Piers, is that anybody watching the programme this morning will be surprised that you don't want to talk about the immediate plight of the Windrush generation.
Well, we spent the first half of the interview talking about that, and then I don't think it's unreasonable, in light of this scandal, to ask the Shadow Home Secretary what your immigration policy is in relation to the up to 1 million people that are in this country illegally. You don't want to answer for reasons that are your right, of course. But I think viewers might also be interested in what your opinion is. I am. I genuinely want to know, Dan. I'm not trying to trap you. I'm just trying to ask you a simple question. What do we do about illegal immigrants in this country? Do we let them stay? Boris Johnson suggested an amnesty. You say no amnesty. So the logical fallout from no amnesty is we get them all out of the country, isn't it? Unless I'm missing something.
The logical fallout from the state, the Immigration and Nationality Department is to try and work towards an Immigration and Nationality Department which is much more fair and much more efficient. And this is something that I'm working on the nuts and bolts of.
Right. You keep saying that, but Diane, honestly, I'm not trying to trip you up. I'm just trying to work out what Labour's view of illegal immigrants is, whether they should stay in the country or whether they should leave. I don't know why you're finding it hard to answer that question.
You've already said there should be targets.
And I don't... Yes, of course there have to be targets, but for specific areas of Home Affairs work, like, for instance, deporting foreign national prisoners.
I mean, it's just painful, wasn't it? I mean, we have heard previous interviews with Diane Abbott that might not have gone as well as they might have done, but that really was painful. She's led the charge. She said the government's policy is a failure, and when she's asked what would she do about illegal immigrants, she simply cannot or will not answer the question. I'm asking you, are you clear what Labour's policy is on illegal immigrants? And if you are, can you please call me very quickly on 0345 60 60 973, because I don't really know what to deduce from all of that. If, like me, you're none the wiser, text to 84850. Or perhaps you think, as I actually do really cynically, that if she was Shadow Home Secretary, we basically wouldn't deport anybody. If you agree with that view, then tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC. Watch us on Facebook and comment there too. What on earth is Labour's policy on illegal immigrants? James from Manchester, have you got the answer?
Hello, Nigel.
Hello.
Very nice to talk to you. Nigel, I'm absolutely dumbfounded. I watched that interview this morning, and the most frightening thing to me as a person is that this woman potentially could be the actual Home Secretary. If you look between all the spin, the question was, and I watched it, and Piers Morgan actually challenged her at least 5, if not 6 times.
6 times we counted, James. 6 times.
Yeah, and what you've got to do with this is he quite cleverly, because he's very good at what he does, and he quite cleverly sort of put to one side the Windrush scandal, and he said no. And if you listen to the terminology, he actually said to this woman, do you agree with deporting illegal immigrants?
Yeah.
You can wrap it up any way you want, but that's what he was actually asking her. And she refused point blank to answer it. She refused point blank for 6 times to answer it. And this is what is frightening. It is absolutely frightening to this country that we could have a potential Home Secretary that would actually not deport anybody that is coming here that is criminal, a murderer, a rapist, a child rapist. Basically, Labour's policy is to not deport anybody. What their policy is to have a open policy.
Well, James, we're all citizens of the world, you know.
No, what they're trying to do, do you know what, Nigel? I've put this on my media account earlier today, and I've got an awful lot of followers, trust me, and I've put it on my media account today. What Diane Abbott, Corbyn, McDonnell, Thorne in my side, Thornbury, all the rest of them, what they're trying to do is they're trying to continue the continuation of LIBOR, as I call them, Labour's policy of importing this kind of third world migrant generation that basically will live off benefits forever in their entire existence and give Labour the vote. Well,
that's a very cynical interpretation, James, but you're not alone in thinking that. James, your opinion, very, very clear. I want to hear some Diane Abbott supporters out there. Come and tell me that actually the Labour Party have taken the high moral ground over Windrush, and that's all that really matters. Let's ask Charlotte in the Forest of Dean. Good evening, Charlotte.
Good evening, Nigel.
So, what is Labour's policy, and indeed, what's the right policy towards illegal immigrants?
Well, I mean, it's interesting to hear that Diane Abbott on the television saying that there has to be caps for illegal immigration. Yeah. Meanwhile, they're trying to defend a load of illegal immigrants that were in Grenfell, which is kind of a bit of, neither one side or the other. You can't say that you're going to have caps and then want to keep a load of illegal immigrants in the country, because that's just, contradictory to what you've already said.
Yeah, I don't know what percentage of Grenfell people were illegal, but certainly there were some, Charlotte, and I do understand that point. But is it? I mean, are Labour just trying to say, look, we're the nice people? We're nice because we're kind to people, and these Tories are horrid, and in some ways the Windrush fiasco, which is an administrative mess-up, has given them the opportunity to do this.
But they're not nice people. There's rampant anti-Semitism within the party. And to be quite honest with you, they race bait as much as anyone that I have seen in this country. It's full of people like Abbott, who to me is just someone who's a race baiter.
Well, but in some ways, Charlotte, she's winning, isn't she? She and Lammy are winning because they've got the Conservative Party reeling on this issue. I mean, there's almost nobody, it seems to me now, in the Conservative cabinet standing up making the arguments that were made in the referendum about having proper border controls controlling those coming into our country. They've all run away, Charlotte. They're scared.
Yeah, but they're all, I mean, whichever colour of party you have in the Parliament, they're all the same thing. They're all New Labour. Whichever colour, they all are basically have the same common purpose. They all want open borders. They all want mass immigration. They don't want to do anything about illegal immigration, and they want to continue that by taking in more refugees. So really, what we have at the moment are parties with exactly the same policies.
And none of them,
what colour they are, and they're all New Labour. They're all
and they none of them,
Labour Blairite policies.
None of them, Charlotte, want to be criticised. None of them want to go to that dinner party in Notting Hill and get looked at in a certain way because they've dared talk about immigration. It's just too awful. Thank God that awful Farage chap is not leading UKIP anymore. That's what they say. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's now 7:15.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast every weekday morning from 7, only on LBC.
Mrs May, and more than a spot of bother. Another senior member of her cabinet has gone. It is, of course, Amber Rudd. To Damien Green, who, of course, former First Secretary of State Conservative MP for Ashford, and he actually served in the Immigration Department as recently as 2012. Would you have ever authorised the go-home vans?
Without sort of taking a decision with all the papers, it's impossible to say.
So you might have done.
What I think is really important is to maintain this distinction that we should continue to try to remove people who've not got a right to be here, but not to let that spread over into people who've got absolutely every right to be in this country.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
With The Times. Be not just informed, but well informed. You're the last-minute babysitter who never wants paying. The voice of reason in the middle of a tantrum. The kind nurse, the wise teacher, and their fun-loving friend. So, happy birthday to the best grandma ever.
Zing Flowers. Beautiful hand-tied bouquets delivered the very same day when ordered before 12 noon. Visit zingflowers.com.
Zing Flowers. Amazing every time.
So, tell us your name and what you do.
My name's Clive and I'm a hermit crab. Clive's the name, moving home is the game.
And as a hermit crab, do you like finding new places to live?
Oh yeah, before Zoopla, it used to do my shelling.
And it's better now?
Oh, with Zoopla, finding a new place is easy. And they help manage your move too. From comparing mortgages to checking removals. They even help find broadband and telly packages. I never miss an episode of Celebrity Crab Island.
Well, that's certainly something to be proud of.
Find and move with Zoopla. Smarter about property.
Don't be taken for granted. Come get some big love at Big Motoring World. You'll love how big our choice is. Up to 2,000 beautiful used BMWs, Audis, Mercedes, and VWs. All ready and waiting just for you. Big Motoring World, minutes from the M25. See bigmotoringworld.co.uk. Now sing it. Big, big, big Motoring World.
Ocean Credit Card.
If you're looking for credit, go to checkocean.co.uk and see in seconds if you'll be accepted for an Ocean credit card before you apply. Checking doesn't affect your credit rating, and with a credit limit of up to £1,500, it's a no-brainer. Go to checkocean.co.uk right now and get an answer in seconds. 39.9% APR representative variable. Intelligent Lending Limited is a credit broker. Capital One is the exclusive lender.
Checkocean.co.uk.
It's in my hair, my eyebrows, it's even up my nose. They make painting look easy on the telly, but let me tell you, it's not. The wall looks like it's been finger painted by a giant child. Who's going to rescue this? Oh, relax. It's Trust a Trader. Actual professionals who know what they're doing and don't leave the place looking like, well, my face. Now I can concentrate on the important stuff. Whispering peach or dirty mayonnaise. Visit trustatrader.com.
Trustatrader.com.
Could you take a photo of us in front of the cathedral?
Oh, we need to get a selfie on the beach.
Wait, before you eat it, take a photo of the octopus. There are many ways to make your friends jealous in Malta, but only one way to fly. Fly British Airways from Gatwick to Malta from £389 per person for return flights and 7 nights accommodation. Availability and dates are extremely limited, ATOL protected. Conditions and booking fee may apply. For full details, cba.com/Gatwick.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC.
So what is Diane Abbott's policy towards illegal immigrants? Frankly, she was clueless on the programme this morning with Piers Morgan. I think, frankly, if she was Home Secretary, she'd barely want anyone to be deported. So what are the numbers? Because we haven't had much discussion of this, really. Well, about 12 to 15,000 people every year are deported from this country. But that, as a percentage of those who are coming into Britain illegally and even found to be illegal, would be no more than 1 in 3. But of the total numbers, of the size and scale of what's going on here, David Wood, a former speechwriter to Theresa May when she was Home Secretary, claimed that the Home Office were of the opinion themselves that each year as many as 150 to 250,000 foreign nationals fail to return home. I don't know whether David Wood's figures are right or wrong. What I do know is that if you want to come to this country illegally, by getting into it illegally or by overstaying your visa, your chances of being removed are pretty small. And that makes the rest of the country very, very angry and annoyed indeed. And they're right to be, because our political class don't have the guts to deal with this. And you've seen this over Windrush. Yes, Windrush was wrong. There was an administrative error over people who legally come to this country, and now it's got everybody on the back foot. They're all too scared to actually talk about how we would deal with illegal immigrants. And, Diane Abbott saying on the one hand she wouldn't support an amnesty, but on the... she couldn't answer any of this stuff. Graham thinks I'm being unfair on Facebook. He says Abbott has led the charge against the government over Windrush that resulted in Rudd resigning. That is holding the government to account. Rudd did not resign over Windrush. Rudd resigned because she was unable to say to Parliament or to that committee, she was unable to confirm that there were targets for deporting illegal immigrants because she was scared to say that because that would look tough and that might look nasty. So it was Windrush indirectly that led on to a misleading Parliament on a key fact. Whitehall departments have targets. Matthew Smith suggests on Facebook that Abbott should have her own TV show. That was the best TV moment. Hope she stays. Labour haven't got a hope in hell while she's around. And Laura has a bit of fun, referring, I think, very much to the famous interview she did with Nick Ferrari during the election when she struggled a bit with police numbers and money. Laura says Diane Abbott will use her 3 million extra police to chase after the 30 illegal immigrants she suspects to be in the country. You're teasing her horribly, just as that nasty Ferrari did. No, Nick did nothing. He just asked her a very simple question that she simply couldn't answer. But hey, I'm not doing this just to be cruel to Diane Abbott. She's had a pretty tough day, I would think. That was a very painful interview, and I want those of you that think I'm being unfair or anybody else is being unfair to come to her defence. Let's go to George from Ebware, a first-time caller to the show. Good evening, George.
Good evening, Nigel. I watched that interview this morning.
Yep.
Yet another car crash. I mean, how this woman is in this job, I wouldn't employ her in my business to be a toilet cleaner. She is absolutely clueless.
Did you laugh, George, or did you shake your head? Or what?
No, I was just, it was just, I didn't laugh. It's not a laughing matter. It's a serious matter. This woman could be the Home Secretary of this country. It is a terrifying thought. We've got her. Corbyn and McDonnell are completely economically illiterate. We could have these people running our country. Now, I did actually question, have you heard of the Barnet Alliance?
Go on, I haven't. Go on, tell me.
They are affiliated to Labour, and very much so to Corbyn. And we spoke about figures, and I've got no problem with immigration. I said, well, what sort of figures would you like? Unlimited. He said, well, we went all the way through the... I said, what about 50 million then? No problem. Well, you're going to put 50 million people, there's loads of that. This is what they want. They want completely... Labour, they know they've lost the northern working classes. They've lost them. So they're going to fill the country with immigrants to vote for them. And they will vote for them. Then it's not daft, but, I hate the thought of that man running this country.
Well, it could happen, George. George, just let me ask you very quickly, what would you like to see government policy be towards illegal immigrants?
Well, if they're illegal, by the sheer word, that means they shouldn't be here.
Quite right.
Let me ask you, how are these people living?
Well, they're living in sheds, they're working in the black economy, taking cash, etc., and there's a lot of it. Migration Watch say 1.1 million illegal migrants in the country. Some others say 2 million, some say many more than that. George, I thank you very much for your call. And JM sends me a very funny text. He says, if Diane Abbott hasn't got a clue, then how the hell do you expect me to know? Because I'm asking you what their policy may be. Let's go to John in Hailsham. Good evening, John.
Yeah, good evening, Nigel. I think the obvious hard facts are that the Labour haven't got any legitimate policies on illegal immigrants living in Britain right now, and I think Diane Abbott is simply trying to capitalise on Theresa May's latest problems. Obviously, we have got at least a minimum of 150,000 people overstaying on their visas, people illegally living in Britain right now.
Yep.
And clearly and obviously, these people do need to be, to be taken out of the country. We have major problems on housing and health problems.
So isn't it funny, John, given the logic of what you've just said, that when Amber Rudd, as Home Secretary, was asked, what are your targets, what are you doing, she said there are no targets. It seems on neither of the front benches is there any genuine resolve to deal with this issue.
I think this is a major problem. I mean, what it is political correctness just gone absolutely mad. I mean, obviously, clearly, the only logical thing, if we've got, thousands of illegal people living in Britain, they should be deported. There's no two ways about that. But political correctness is preventing this from happening. And, I don't think Labour or the Tory party have got a clue what to do about the problems they've created.
Nor do I, John.
50 years.
No, John, and you're right. They have created this, and that's a point that they seem to run away from. Nobody ever holds them to account. John and Hailsham just did. Thank you. Christine is calling from Shepherd's Bush. Good evening, Christine.
Yes, hello. Good evening to you. Well, this whole car crash that has been the Windrush question has allowed Labour to really bring back the idea that to want controlled immigration makes you an absolute leper.
Mm-hmm.
I was a member of the Labour Party for many years, and one of the reasons why I left was because I voiced on several occasions, particularly when we opened the door, as we did, to East Europeans, putting in none of the control options that most other European countries did.
Yep.
We just opened the doors without ensuring there were places at schools, there were hospitals, and most importantly, housing. It was an absolute no-no to voice any concerns about immigration. And I will also add that the fact that Windrush, this has been allowed to be used to bring back this idea that you can't speak against is a disgrace. No one wants the Windrush. They were invited over here.
Yeah, they're legal, Christine.
Exactly. And no one wants, and here's the buzzword, isn't it, Nigel? Toxic. No one wants them to be treated in any way that could be called toxic. They should be treated with dignity and respect.
So why, Christine? And I've agreed with almost every single thing you've said on this phone call. Why, Christine, will somebody in the Cabinet not stand up and face the cameras and say, look, Windrush is an admin mess. Perhaps it was the Labour Party's fault. Perhaps it happened under our watch. We don't actually know the facts of this. But they were legal immigrants who've been badly dealt with. But when it comes to illegal immigration, this government promises to have higher targets next year than we've got this year. This government promises to be tough. Do you know what, Christine? I think voters from across all parties would cheer them to the rafters. Why don't they do it?
Well, I couldn't understand why they didn't keep driving home the point. This is a big cock-up. We are not talking about legals who are all of the Windrush. And can I just add here, Nigel, my own father, who was an Irish national, but who was also a disabled Second World War veteran, met this exact situation in 1978 when his right to be in this country was questioned, and it took over a year, even though he had army records. You know, the man had literally, because he was an Irishman who in 1939, despite coming from a fiercely Republican family, decided that the Nazis were worse than the English. When in 1945 he wanted to go back to his home, he was ostracised by his family. Yeah. He was ostracised by his country.
And this happened to a lot. This happened to a lot of Irish nationals, Christine, didn't it? They finished up a little bit. They'd done the right thing to help us fight Nazism and found themselves a bit unwelcome in both places. And that was an unfortunate situation he found himself in. Christine, thank you. Great call. A lot of passion there from Christine. And she makes the point that she, as a Labour Party member, voiced concerns back in 2004 about opening up the door to 8 and then 10 former communist countries from Eastern and Central Europe, and she was shouted down for doing so. And as she says, Windrush is being used as a way of crushing all legitimate debate about immigration, and in particular, how to deal with illegal immigrants. And nobody in this cabinet or government appears to have the guts to stand up and do what a very clear majority and big majority of people in this country want them to do. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 7:30 and time for the news with Thomas Watts.
The new Home Secretary has distanced himself from the hostile environment phrase used to describe the government's policy to illegal immigration. Sajid Javid's replaced Amber Rudd, who resigned last night over evidence she gave to MPs following the Windrush scandal. Labour MP John Woodcock has been suspended from the party over reported claims of sexual harassment. A spokesperson says it's pending due process and it would not be appropriate to comment further. A man's died on the Kent coast after a day of strong winds and heavy rain across the southeast. 2 other men were taken to hospital after being washed from the pier in Ramsgate by a large wave. LBC weather, rain slowly moving away from eastern England tonight, then dry with a frost developing across much of the country, a low of 3 degrees.
LBC travel in Limehouse. The A13 is shut eastbound from Limehouse Station because of an accident. There are delays westbound past the scene and delays on the M25 clockwise approaching junction 23 for South Mims because of barrier repairs. It's slow on the northbound approach to the Blackpool Tunnel after a van broke down earlier. On the tubes, the District Line has no service from South Kensington to Ealing Broadway, Richmond and Wimbledon, with severe delays on the rest of the line, and there are severe delays on the Circle Line as well. LBC Travel, I'm Katie Tyler.
This is LBC.
All this week with the Open University, LBC will be carrying out a special report into adult learning and how it can change people's lives for the better. We'll be spending the week lifting the lid on the Open University, finding out what it's like to study, how everyone can learn while still earning, and how gaining new qualifications can help bring life and social change. All this week with the Open University and LBC.
England at Wembley. You can't describe it. Experience it for yourself. Cheer on the 3 Lions ahead of the FIFA World Cup in Russia. England v Nigeria, 5:15 p.m, Saturday 2nd of June. thefa.com/tickets. Be there.
Landlords, Direct Line guarantees to beat other insurers' renewal premiums for the same cover. Can your insurance do that? Switch to Direct Line Landlord. New customers only. Qualifying criteria apply. Underwritten by UK Insurance Limited.
There's no telling what your cat will get up to next. Make sure they're protected with Pets in a Pickle Pet Insurance. Go to petsinaapickle.co.uk.
It's in my hair, my eyebrows, it's even up my nose. They make painting look easy on the telly, but let me tell you, it's not. The wall looks like it's been finger painted by a giant child. Who's going to rescue this? Oh, relax. It's Trust a Trader. Actual professionals who know what they're doing and don't leave the place looking like, well, my face. Now I can concentrate on the important stuff. Whispering peach or dirty mayonnaise. Visit trustatrader.com.
Trustatrader.com.
Whatever business demands, we deliver. When you need your staff connected, we deliver the new Transit Custom with voice control technology on the optional Sync 3 system. When you want a better deal, we deliver a £500 customer saving, excluding VAT, on the recommended retail price when you buy a new Ford commercial vehicle after taking a test drive. Only at the Transit Show live event, 27th of April to the 7th of May, at your nearest participating Ford dealer. Ford. Together, we go further.
Selected models excluded. Contract between 27th of April and 7th of May. Register by 31st of December 2018. For further T's and C's, visit ford.co.uk/Transit Show Live.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC.
As Diane Abbott has a total car crash on breakfast television, being interviewed by Piers Morgan as to what her policy on illegal immigrants is and failing to answer, I'm asking you, do you know what the answer is? Do you know what Labour's policy is? I really don't know, though I suspect it probably is not to deport virtually anybody. But, of course, we have a new Home Secretary. Sajid Javid has become the Home Secretary today. He's 48 years old. His parents came to this country from Pakistan in the 1960s. His dad was a bus driver. He's the country's first Home Secretary from an ethnic minority background. Although, remember, Disraeli was Jewish and was Prime Minister 150 years ago, so there are precedents for people from minorities reaching the top in this country. Theresa May, as officers, has praised him as having drive, ambition and determination. He says, Javid, that solving the Windrush scandal is his most urgent task. And what do I think? Well, he's a Remainer. That's right. He's another Remainer. Oh, Nigel, no, you don't understand. Actually, he's really a Brexiteer. He believes in Brexit, but he just voted Remain because it was the right thing to do. It's a bit like saying, well, I'm sorry we supported the Germans in the war. We didn't really mean it. I mean, for goodness sake, if he wasn't brave enough on the biggest political division of the day to stand up for what people tell me he really believes in, that worries me. That said, he'll be a lot better than Amber Rudd on Brexit. He made it very clear we should leave the customs union. She, of course, was equivocating on this, which led to me giving us some criticism last week. When it comes to dealing with illegal immigration and the sheer numbers of people legally coming into Britain every year, I have every confidence he will do absolutely nothing and will make no difference whatsoever. I would love to be proved wrong. Another defeat in the House of Lords today. This time, peers have backed an amendment to the European Union Withdrawal Bill by quite a big majority of 91 to give Parliament a final decisive say on the outcome of the Brexit negotiations. Now, what is interesting here is, have they given just the House of Commons even more power than the court intended for them to have? Or are they actually saying they themselves ultimately might have another vote? Interesting to think that one through. And, Viscount Hailsham, former Tory minister, said that this is to make sure the future of our country is determined by Parliament and not by ministers. But Michael Howard, former Tory leader, has spoken very, very strongly. Lord Howard of Limp, as he now is. He said the new clause gives the Lords a veto on any agreement which the government has reached and which the other place, by which he means the Commons, has endorsed. He says that the unelected chamber could defy not only the will of the people, but also the will of the elected chamber. Well, I have to say, Lord Howard, I have been thinking for some years now that the House of Lords has completely fallen into disrepute and we've got to get rid of it. And on a happier note, you heard it first on this show when I suggested that perhaps Donald Trump, the USA's 45th president, should get the Nobel Peace Prize. And I know a lot of you had apoplexy when I suggested this. The board lit up like a Belisha beacon. You all thought I'd gone completely nuts. Well, today, the South Korean President Moon Jae-in has said Trump deserved a Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts in bringing North Korea to the bargaining table. He said none of this would have happened without Trump's efforts. Now, truth of it is, we should only nominate him after meetings have happened and after something concrete has been decided. You know, Obama was given the Peace Prize for what he might do. Trump's done far more than Obama. We're not quite there yet, but hey, good things are happening on the Korean Peninsula. That is a reason to be cheerful. Nick on Facebook says, whatever ground Labour won over Windrush, they lost it this morning. Interesting, Nick. They may have done. They may have done. Kerry says Abbott has helped get the Tories on the racks. Well, she may well. She and Lammy have criticised them heavily over Windrush. They didn't seem to know quite how to respond to that. But it's all well and good criticising. But if you can't answer the question that's asked back of you, it doesn't look that good. John is a first-time caller from Glasgow. Good evening, John.
Hi, Nigel. How are you?
So, can you help me, John? Tell us. Yeah. Tell the country what really is their policy.
I can tell you by just saying one or two sentences, really. Diane Abbott has got no clue what the policy is. Neither has the Labour Party. And to be honest with you, the three people that they have in the top there, the McDonald's Farm and Corbyn and Miss Abbott. I've been a voter for Labour for over 40 years.
Yes.
And the last election, I changed because there's actually no way I would vote while they three anything to do with run this country. They are an absolute car crash. And if people want to know more about Abbott, please go onto YouTube and just type in Abbott. You'll be there for 2 or 3 days laughing.
John, you're being cruel.
I'm not being cruel. I'm being honest. That is honest. The woman has not got a clue. And on your last point there, Nigel, sorry to go on. Why is it and how is it that a chamber of some 300 or 400 old-time lords who are not elected can change the will of the people of 17.4 million?
John,
this is not right. There is something not right.
It is a complete joke, John, and the House of Lords needs to go. It is well past itself by now.
What are we going to do? Because every day on the television now, you're getting people who are saying about Brexit failed. There is no one coming on, except you, who's talking about the benefits and why we should. And I'll be honest with you. I'll be completely honest. I voted to remain.
Yeah.
But within a week of the vote, I was actually delighted that we were leaving because of the way the European Parliament treated the UK, what they were going to do to us, how they were going to harm us. Unbelievable. I don't know how anyone in this country can actually vote.
They're a nasty bunch of bullies, John. Well,
they are. Very nasty.
You and Sajid Javid have been on the same journey, John. So you were both Remainers who are now Leavers. John, we'll debate that another time. Many of us are worried about Brexit, although I have a feeling somehow we're going to get there in the end. John, thank you. And John says that, frankly, she's hopeless, she's useless. Google her, look at YouTube, have a laugh, she's so useless. Please someone come on and tell me, actually, she's good news. You can do that by calling 0345 6060 973, and you will go right to the front of the queue, I promise you, because we're struggling to find too many supporters. Nigel, why do some find it hard to grasp really simple words such as illegality, I get on Twitter? What Diane Abbott was trying to say was there should be targets for dealing with apparent illegal immigrants. So if they turn out not to be illegal, they are then cleared. And OK, fine. Thank you, Paul. Let's move on. It's rather like trying to follow one of her sentences. It's too difficult. We've got a caller from Exeter here. Arthur, who's a first-time caller to the show. Arthur, good evening.
Oh, good evening, Nigel. And it's Orta.
Orta. Right, I did my best. All right. We all make mistakes. Hands up. I got it wrong. So tell me.
No problem.
Tell me. I mean, a big coup for Diane Abbott, really.
Yes,
the resignation of Rudd, she'd been calling for it, but she did make a mess of it this morning, didn't she?
Totally. And I tweeted after GMB on it with the usual crash dummy tweet, which got quite a response. I think it all boils down to essentially one issue.
Yep.
And it's virtue. The whole thing is competitive virtue. Our politicians, the whole of our infrastructure, everything, are absolutely terrified of the cult of virtue. We have allowed them, as it were, this is a part of a quote, to preach tolerance of the intolerable till the voice of reason itself is silenced. And it's
well, they've been so they've been rather good at it then, haven't they?
Indeed. What the problem is, though, Nigel, is that not many of the population actually agree with it.
I know they don't.
It's just pure cowardice.
Yeah, and it is, and I have to say, there's a lot of cowardice on the Conservative benches over this.
Indeed, I would like to be able to vote for someone like Jacob, for example, who clearly is not a coward, who can say it straight. But we just haven't got it. There is no one there that represents the British people.
I think the disconnect between what large elements of the media and most of Westminster are saying over Windrush and what's happening today and what is going on in Exeter and elsewhere, I think it's a massive disconnect.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. They live in this bubble. They all share the same sort of parties, Oh, please don't say that, darling. I'm not going to get my invite. That sort of stuff.
Yeah.
We have, you can even invent a new word. We have become a ridiculum.
A ridiculum. Very good. So thank you very much indeed for your call. And someone there who's been busy on social media ever since Breakfast Television this morning. Support for Rudd coming in here on Twitter. I like Rudd. There was no need to resign. OK, you're saying that Windrush wasn't her fault. No, I agree with you. I said that all last week, that Windrush wasn't her fault. She may have looked initially a little flat-footed in dealing with it, but it wasn't her fault. What was her fault was to tell a parliamentary committee that her department didn't have targets for illegal removals when clearly it did. Obviously it did. The whole of Whitehall has targets. Steve from Oxfordshire. Now, he has a very different view to many of our elected politicians. He says, Nigel, 100% illegal immigrants should be deported. That's the view from Steve in Oxfordshire. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's now 7:45.
Coming up at 8 on LBC, Clive Bull.
ID cards are back on the agenda with 3 former Home Secretaries all backing their introduction. But in practice, what problem would they solve?
Clive Bull on LBC.
If you want your hard-earned money to be secure and give you great returns, invest in Union Premier Bond. Just log in to www.unionpremierbond.co.uk and choose your investment duration from 1 to 5 years with great returns. With its effortless online application process, it is designed keeping your needs in mind. Union Premier Bond by Union Bank of India UK Limited. Good people to bank with. Union Bank of India UK Limited is authorised by the Prudential Regulation Authority and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority and the Prudential Regulation Authority.
England at Wembley. You can't describe it. Experience it for yourself. Cheer on the 3 Lions ahead of the FIFA World Cup in Russia. England v Nigeria, 5:15 p.m, Saturday 2nd of June. thefa.com/tickets. Be there.
Clive, what's doing Wolf? Whale music? You must be one stressed out private landlord.
Yes, I am.
Your tenants are struggling financially and can't pay their rent. But you're with Direct Line. They'll repay any unpaid rent until your tenants are out. So drop the stress ball. It'll all be over soon. That's better.
Claim back unpaid rent after 1 month's arrears with rent guarantee. Can your insurance do that? Search Direct Line Landlord. Cover purchased as part of legal expenses add-on. Qualifying criteria apply. Restricted claims for existing tenants in the first 90 days when product first purchased.
When you work for yourself, you learn a few things very quickly. Claim VAT back on as much as you can. Cash flow can go from a flood to a trickle if you don't keep an eye on it. And shoeboxes are not the best filing system. If you snap a picture of your receipts and sort them with QuickBooks, you'll know what's going out and coming in with just a few taps. Track all your expenses and keep your cash flowing with QuickBooks. Backing you. Available now for up to 50% off your first 6 months. For terms and conditions, visit quickbooks.co.uk.
So tell us your name and what you do.
My name's Olivia. I'm a hermit crab, passionate about dance, and I'm a proud mum to 49 darling hermit crabs.
Wow, you must need a lot of room for the kids, not the dancing.
Oh, we've got a 4-bedroom house with an extension and garden.
Oh, where did you find it?
Zoopla. Me and the hubby used the running costs tool to see if we could afford the rent, energy bills and council tax.
Clever.
We've even got an idea of the water bills. Great for us crabs. Oh, is this live? Can I show you some of my dance moves?
Yeah, it's radio. No one's going to see you.
Oh.
Find and move with Zoopla. Smarter about property.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC, The Nigel Farage Show.
If you know what Diane Abbott's policy towards illegal immigrants is, please let us know here on LBC, because she clearly hadn't got a clue when she was interviewed this morning by Piers Morgan on ITV. Before I get back to that, the latest edition of my podcast, Farage Against the Machine, is out. And, of course, one of the aims of it was to speak to people who politically I may well disagree with. And who could that apply to better than the former Deputy Prime Minister of the United Kingdom and former leader of the Lib Dems, Nick Clegg, who I interview in this latest podcast. And one thing I did ask him is if he thought if it would stop Brexit, he might return to frontline politics to lead a political party in the United Kingdom. Here's his response.
The thing that I care about right now more than anything else, as much as a sort of dad to young children I want to grow up in a country which I think is outward facing and properly leading in our own hemisphere, in our own continent, not kind of, off on some sort of utopian fantasy in the middle of the Atlantic. If I could do anything to make that come about, I would. At the moment, what I do is I speak both publicly and privately.
It's not impossible. No.
Not impossible. What's not impossible?
It's not impossible that you could come back in some way if you could make those things happen.
I really, really doubt it. I don't think you. I doubt these things. But right now, I think there's so much movement in British politics, and the kind of earthquake which you helped to detonate, if I put it like that, of Brexit, I think will have aftershocks for a long, long period of time in British politics.
If not that, is it the European Commission for you next? Hardly. Could it be Paul Clegg? Could you come back to Nick Ferrari maybe on LBC?
I think we had great fun as it was, but I think we're not going to. The old band, I don't think is going to regroup.
Well, I also asked him whether he agrees with Trump coming to the UK in July, what it was like working with the now Prime Minister Theresa May inside the corridors of power, and I also asked him when he last spoke to David Cameron. You can get all of that. Farage Against the Machine. You can go to iTunes. You can go to lbc.co.uk. I hope it's a good listen. We do fundamentally disagree about much, Nick Clegg and I, but it is a full, frank discussion. I get a very interesting text here. As a young Conservative supporter, the lack of will from the party to confront illegal immigration is incredibly scary. In addition to the appointment, if Sajid Javid is damaging as to why the Cabinet should supposedly be getting the UK out of the EU, why if it's doing that, is it filling its top brass with Remainers? The statement that the new Home Secretary is a Eurosceptic Remainer is nearly as big an oxymoron as Labour's immigration policy. And I don't know who you are, but, what I'm told, no, Nigel, you've got to understand. No. He may have voted Remain, but he's a Leaver, so it's all right. Well, it's a bit gutless as far as I'm concerned. Let's go to Robert, who's calling from Dulwich. Good evening, Robert.
Hi, good evening, Nigel. Thanks for taking the call. Look, Nigel, I'm half Caribbean.
Yep.
I'm the son of an immigrant.
Uh-huh.
And I voted for Brexit, and I am tired of our political class talking to the people in this country. I consider, by the way, I'm a massive Anglophile. I love this country. I've lived here most of my life.
Yep.
And I've contributed and all the rest of it. I am so tired of the political class in this country talking down to British people. I had to pick up the phone. I know you're always busy, so I don't usually bother ringing in. But, the British people are an incredible race. I have lived on other parts of the world. I've lived in Asia. People here talk about racism. They have no idea what it's like for a black person in Asia, I can assure you. I am so tired of politicians using race as a cheap way to get votes. It breaks my heart when I see, look, no, I'm not saying everyone in Britain is perfect, but the British people are amongst the most tolerant, the most open. It's one of the most diverse countries in the world. But all we're saying, the politicians are going to have to understand this, otherwise it's going to get messy. All we're saying is that there are pros and cons to anything in life, and that applies to immigration. And we have had 15 years, without being asked, we've had 15, 20 years of mass immigration, and all some of us are asking is it reasonable to start looking at some of the implications?
Well, absolutely, Robert, absolutely. And this is, in a sense, that's the argument that I led the charge for starting back in 2004. And yes, you get called all the names under the sun for daring to do it. These public figures, Trump, beat us all up for being horrible and racist. Actually, you mentioned Asia. Go to the rest of Europe.
Nigel.
Yeah.
Nigel, can I just mention two things?
Yeah.
During the Brexit campaign, I was actually a branch chairman for UKIP, and I organised lots of stalls. I was physically attacked. Myself and my Jamaican friend, he's completely black.
Yeah.
We were attacked by these people. It was in Brixton, and they were all left wing. They said one of them was a Labour councillor, and he was openly threatening us. He was spat on. Our sport was, and the left wing in this country has got nothing to do with Keir Hardie. There is nothing noble about the people who represent the left today. These politicians from the so-called left that claim to represent a so-called underclass, they do nothing for them. And I'm tired of people, one guy came up to me in the Brexit campaign, Nigel, and he was terrified. He was a black man. And when the kerfuffle had finally gone, he came up and he took a leaflet, and it broke my heart. And he said quietly, "I'm going to vote for Brexit." And this guy has no voice.
Scared to say so.
Labour, if you're a Labour voter and you're ethnic and you decide, actually, no, I'm actually against this mass immigration. I think we've got to curtail it a little bit and think a bit more about the future and how we're going to plan. They turn on you, and they're vicious people.
You're right. Logic is out of the window. Robert, you and I have just talked on this phone call about legal immigration and the needs, to deal with it properly and sensibly, and you and I are completely at one on that. Let me ask you, what should we do with illegal immigrants in this country?
Well, it's in the definition. It's in the name. If someone is here illegally, they shouldn't be here. Logic has gone out the window, Nigel. This cultural Marxism has meant that it's not what you say. The logic of an argument isn't based in the argument anymore. It's based on who's saying it. This is a very dangerous road.
And we've got to stand up and fight, Robert. We've got to stand up and fight. And you're one of those people who is standing up and fighting, and I admire you for that. And I thank you very much for your very, very passionate call. Chris rather agrees by text. He says, how have our political classes arrived at a point where it is now considered controversial to want to prevent illegal immigration? It's PC insanity. Michael is a first-time caller from Kings Lynn up in North Norfolk. Good evening, Michael.
Hello, Nigel. Good evening. Thanks for having me. Michael, before I say something about Diane Abbott, which is, I almost choked on my breakfast this morning.
I love it.
It was so funny. The fact of the matter is we need you back in politics, mate. Please, please, please. You're the voice of reason. You're the man with, I believe, the most common sense in the field of
Well, Michael, I am still leading a group in the European Parliament, Michael. I'm still in politics, but anyway, listen, that's sweet of you. So what is Labour's policy? Come on, solve the riddle. Help the nation, Michael.
They don't have one, and it's by deception. I believe personally that behind the scenes, all the way to the next general election, they're going to stall this question, and once they have, God forbid we give Diane Abbott the keys to the Home Office, she will, I believe, backdoor illegal immigrants into this country willy-nilly. That's my view.
Is it? And what if that's her position? Why doesn't she just say so?
Exactly. Be honest with us. Be honest with the British public. Tell us what you... And the same thing with Jeremy Corbyn and the other car crash butler, whatever her name is. The thing about it is, they're not honest with us. Put your cards on the table, let the people decide. Believe you me, if the people decide we want a different type of immigration policy, then the majority wins, and the majority wins.
And that's how it should work, Michael. But we need to have the honest arguments put to us. I agree with you totally. I thank you very much indeed for your call. And Michael was reduced to laughter this morning with the interview. Others think it's no laughing matter. Rick says the Lord should be abolished. I'm with you, Rick. Adam says Diane Abbott's refusal to answer Piers Morgan is because she hasn't got a clue what the Labour Party policy is, if there even is one. My last caller on this subject this evening is Rudy, who's calling from Exeter. Good evening, Rudy.
Hi, Nigel. How are you doing? Okay.
Fine. So, what do you think? What's her policy, really?
She doesn't have a policy. It's going to be the Mrs. Merkel policy of all welcome, is what I think it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, the solution is simple. First of all, they're illegal, so they shouldn't have any rights. And I think that the immigration policy that we have in this UK should be exactly the same as what you get in Dubai. You have your visa for working, and that's all you're there for. You're not entitled to anything. If you lose your job, you've got 30 days to get a job. And if you don't get a job, you have to go home. It should be as simple as that.
Yeah.
There's no problem.
Yeah, and yet we allow people to overstay, Rudy. People apply for asylum and get rejected, and very few of them actually ever get deported. And just because the government, just because the Home Secretary, wasn't prepared to say that, she was scared, wasn't she? She was scared to say we've got targets. What's gone wrong with our country?
But targets are good because at least
I agree.
What to aim for.
I couldn't agree more. Rudy, I thank you very much indeed. Well, there was some sympathy there for Diane Abbott, though I have to say not very much. It was a disastrous interview this morning, and actually we're all the weaker and poorer because we're not, our politicians are not having a proper, honest, open debate about illegal immigration. The public want them to. You've been listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. I'm back tomorrow at 7. At 10 tonight, it's Ian Collins, but up next, it's Clive Bull.
Nigel, thank you. Coming up at 9, it's the Consumer Hour. I'm joined by consumer lawyer Dean Dunham to talk about your rights and take your questions. And we'll be looking at the